First contact. Humanity discovers a devastating alien threat. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Captain Elena Reyes as she gazed through the view screen of the UES horizon. The exploration vessel had been on a routine survey mission in a previously unexplored sector when their long-range scanners picked up an anomaly. "What do you make of it, Dr. Chen?" Elena asked, turning to her chief science officer. Dr. Lian Chen furrowed her brow as she studied the readouts. "It's like nothing I've ever seen, Captain. The energy signature is off the charts. Whatever it is, it's not natural." Before Elena could respond, a blinding flash of light filled the view screen. When it faded, a massive object hung in space before them. A ship unlike any they had encountered in humanity's centuries of space exploration. "Red alert," Elena barked. "Shields up, weapons online." The alien vessel dwarfed the horizon, its hull gleaming with an otherworldly iridescence. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, without warning, a beam of searing energy lanced out from the alien ship, slicing through the horizon's shields like they weren't even there. "Evasive maneuvers," Elena shouted as alarms blared throughout the ship. "Get us out of here." The horizon's engines roared to life, but it was too late. Another blast from the alien vessel struck them, and Elena felt the deck lurch beneath her feet. Systems failed across the ship as that impossible energy tore through their defenses. "Helm, set a course for Earth, maximum warp," Elena ordered. "We need to warn them." As the horizon limped away, its hull breached and half its systems offline, Elena couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled in her stomach. Whatever these aliens were, they possessed technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen, and they were clearly hostile. The journey back to Earth was a race against time. Elena and her crew worked tirelessly to keep the damaged ship together, all while wondering if they were being pursued by that terrifying alien vessel. When they finally arrived in Earth's orbit, Elena breathed a sigh of relief, but she knew the real challenge was just beginning. Within hours of their return, Elena found herself standing before the United Earth Council, the governing body that oversaw humanity's interstellar affairs. The chamber was filled with representatives from every nation and colony, their faces grave as they listened to her report. "Counselors," Elena began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "What we encountered out there represents a threat unlike any humanity has ever faced. Their technology is centuries, perhaps millennia beyond our own. And they attacked without provocation or attempt at communication." Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. Counselor Adebayo, a tall man from the African Union, leaned forward. "Captain Rice, what do you recommend we do in the face of such a threat?" Elena took a deep breath. "We need to mobilize every resource at our disposal, boost our defenses, accelerate our research and development programs. But most importantly, we need to reach out to other spacefaring species. We can't face this threat alone." The council chamber erupted into debate. Some argued for isolation, to fortify Earth and its colonies against the coming storm. Others supported Elena's call for alliance building. As the arguments raged, a young aide burst into the chamber, his face pale. "Counselors," he shouted, silencing the room. "We're receiving distress calls from our outer colonies. They're under attack." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The alien threat wasn't some distant problem. It was here, now, tearing through humanity's defenses like they were tissue paper. Counselor Zhang, an elderly woman from the Chinese Federation, stood slowly. "It seems, my friends, that the decision has been made for us. Captain Rice, you have the full support of this council. Do whatever is necessary to protect Earth and its people." As Elena left the chamber, her mind was already racing with plans. She would need to assemble a team, reach out to potential alien allies, and somehow find a way to fight back against an enemy that seemed invincible. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a conflict that would push humanity to its limits and reveal strengths they never knew they possessed. In the days that followed, Reports flooded in from across human space. Colonies fell silent, their distress beacons abruptly cutting out. The few survivors who managed to escape spoke of energy weapons that ignored shields, of hulls that regenerated even as they were breached, of an implacable foe that seemed to regard humans as little more than insects to be swatted aside. Elena found herself at the center of Earth's frantic preparations. As one of the few who had encountered the aliens and lived, her insights were invaluable. She worked with military strategists to analyze the enemy's tactics, with scientists to try and understand their technology, and with diplomats to reach out to other species who might be willing to join the fight. It was during one of these diplomatic meetings that humanity received its first glimmer of hope. The Orcs, a species of highly intelligent cephalopod-like beings, had been observing the conflict from afar. Their ambassador, a being named Zixtal, requested an urgent meeting with Earth's leaders. "We have encountered these invaders before," Zixtal explained, its tentacles rippling with bioluminescent patterns that translated its thoughts. "They call themselves the Netheri, and they have laid waste to countless civilizations across the galaxy." Elena leaned forward, her heart racing. "You fought them. How can we stop them?" Zixtal's colors shifted to a somber hue. "We did not fight them, Captain Reyes. We hid. It was the only way to survive. But perhaps with your species, there is another way." As Zixtal explained, Elena felt a mix of hope and trepidation growing within her. The Orcs possessed knowledge that could be crucial in the fight against the Netheri. But more than that, they saw something in humanity, a potential that even humans themselves hadn't fully grasped. "Your species is young," Zixtal said, "but you possess a quality we have rarely seen. You adapt. You innovate. Where others see impossibility, you see challenge. It is why the Netheri targeted you so quickly. And it may be why you are the galaxy's best hope." As the meeting concluded, Elena knew that humanity stood at a crossroads. The path ahead would be fraught with danger, requiring sacrifices and ingenuity beyond anything they had ever attempted. But for the first time since that fateful encounter in deep space, she felt a spark of real hope. The Netheri might seem invincible, but humanity was about to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The real battle was just beginning. Alliance formation. Humans unite with other species to face the enemy. In the weeks following the Orcs revelation, Earth became a hub of frantic activity. The United Earth Council had declared a state of global emergency, redirecting all resources towards defense and technological development. But even as humanity prepared for war, Elena Reyes found herself embarking on a different kind of mission. "You want me to do what?" Elena asked, staring at Admiral Takashi Yamamoto in disbelief. The Admiral's hologram flickered slightly as he responded. "We need you to lead a diplomatic mission, Captain. The Orcs have provided us with a list of species that might be willing to join our fight against the Netheri. Your experience with first contact situations makes you the ideal candidate." Elena ran a hand through her short, dark hair. "With all due respect, sir, I'm a starship captain, not a diplomat." Yamamoto's expression softened. "You're more than that, Elena. You're a symbol of hope. You survived an encounter with the Netheri. People will listen to you." Reluctantly, Elena agreed. Within days, she found herself aboard the newly christened UES Unity, a state-of-the-art diplomatic vessel. Her crew was a mix of military personnel and civilian experts, including Dr. Chen, who had insisted on coming along. Their first stop was the Volari system, home to a species of highly advanced energy beings. As they approached the swirling gas giant that the Volari called home, Elena felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. "Opening hailing frequencies," her communications officer announced. A melodious voice filled the bridge, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Greetings, humans. We have been expecting you." Elena took a deep breath. "I am Captain Elena Reyes of the United Earth Alliance. We come seeking your aid against a grave threat to the galaxy." There was a pause, and then the voice responded. "We are aware of the Netheri, Captain. Their actions have not gone unnoticed, even in our isolated realm. But tell us, why should we involve ourselves in this conflict? Elena had prepared for this question. She launched into an impassioned speech about unity, about the need for all sentient beings to stand together against tyranny. But as she spoke, she realized her prepared words rang hollow. Instead, she found herself speaking from the heart. "The truth is," she said, her voice raw with emotion, "we're scared. The Nethari are unlike anything we've ever faced. But we refuse to give up. Humanity has always found a way to overcome impossible odds, and we'll do it again, with or without your help. But with you by our side, we stand a much better chance of saving not just ourselves, but countless other species who can't defend themselves." There was a long silence. Then, to Elena's surprise, a shimmering form materialized on the bridge. A Volari ambassador, its body a swirling mass of energy and light. "Your honesty is refreshing, Captain," the Volari said. "We will join your alliance." As they left the Volari system with their first major ally secured, Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. But she knew this was just the beginning. Over the next several weeks, the Unity zigzagged across the sector, meeting with species after species. Some, like the silicon-based Kruaks, were eager to join the fight. Others, like the isolationist Zen, took more convincing. With each successful negotiation, the alliance grew stronger, but Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Her fears were confirmed when they received an urgent transmission from Earth. The Nethari had launched a major offensive, pushing deep into human space. Colonies were falling at an alarming rate, and Earth's defenses were being stretched to the breaking point. "We need to return immediately," Elena told her crew, her face grim. "Earth needs every ship it can get." But as they prepared to depart, they received another transmission, this one from a previously unknown source. The message was garbled, filled with static, but Elena could make out a few key phrases. "Weapon. Nethari weakness. Come quickly." Dr. Chen analyzed the transmission. "Captain, this signal. It's coming from inside Nethari-controlled space." Elena's mind raced. Could this be a trap? Or was it the key to turning the tide of the war? She knew returning to Earth was the safe choice, the expected choice. But something in her gut told her this mysterious transmission could be their one shot at victory. "Plot a course for the signal's origin," she ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her mind. "And send a message to Earth. Tell them we might have found a way to win this war." As the Unity jumped to warp, heading into the heart of enemy territory, Elena silently prayed she had made the right choice. The fate of Earth, of the entire alliance, might well rest on what they found at the other end of that transmission. The journey into Nethari space was tense, with the crew of the Unity on constant alert for any sign of enemy ships. They dropped out of warp in an unremarkable star system, the source of the mysterious transmission appearing to be a small rocky planet orbiting a red dwarf star. "I'm detecting a weak energy signature on the planet's surface," Dr. Chen reported, her eyes fixed on her console. "It matches the frequency of the transmission we received." Elena nodded grimly. "Prepare a landing party. We'll investigate on foot." As they descended to the planet's surface in a shuttle, Elena couldn't shake a sense of unease. The barren, rust-colored landscape seemed devoid of life, yet somewhere down there was the source of a message that could change the course of the war. The landing party, consisting of Elena, Dr. Chen, and a small security detail, made their way across the rocky terrain, following the strengthening energy signature. As they crested a hill, they saw it, a structure that was clearly not natural, its smooth, dark surface a stark contrast to the rugged landscape around it. "It's Nethari architecture," Dr. Chen whispered, her voice filled with a mix of fear and excitement. As they approached, a section of the wall seemed to ripple and then disappear, revealing an entrance. Elena hesitated for a moment, then steeled herself and led the way inside. The interior was dimly lit, with pulsing lines of energy running along the walls. As they ventured deeper, they began to hear a sound, a low, rhythmic hum that seemed to resonate in their very bones. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the shadows. Alina and her team raised their weapons, but quickly lowered them in shock. The being before them was clearly not Netheri. It was tall and slender, with iridescent skin and large, multifaceted eyes. "Welcome, humans," the being said, its voice melodious and slightly echoing. "I am Zareth, last of the Lumini. We have much to discuss, and very little time." As Zareth explained, Alina and her team listened in growing amazement. The Lumini had once been a powerful and advanced civilization, one of the few that had successfully resisted the Netheri. But their victory had come at a terrible cost. Their entire species had been nearly wiped out, with only a handful of survivors scattered across the galaxy. "We developed a weapon," Zareth said, leading them deeper into the facility. "A way to disrupt the Netheri's energy-based technology. But we were betrayed from within, and the Netheri destroyed our homeworld before we could use it." They entered a vast chamber, dominated by a device unlike anything Alina had ever seen. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its very presence seeming to distort the space around it. "This is the nullifier," Zareth explained. "It generates a field that unravels the quantum structure of Netheri tech, but it requires a tremendous amount of power to activate on a large scale, more than my people could generate." Alina's mind was racing. "But if we could power it, we could neutralize the Netheri fleet." Zareth nodded solemnly. "It would render their weapons and shields useless. But the challenge is not just in powering it, but in surviving long enough to activate it. The Netheri will throw everything they have at you once they realize what you're attempting." As Alina absorbed this information, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as she checked her scanner. "Captain, we've got multiple Netheri ships entering the system." Alina's heart raced, but her voice remained calm as she turned to Zareth. "Looks like we're out of time. Can we move this device?" The Lumine shook its head. "It's too large and too delicate. But I can give you the plans, the knowledge to build your own." As the first explosions rocked the facility, Alina made a split-second decision. "Dr. Chen, start downloading everything you can. The rest of you, prepare for emergency evac." She turned to Zareth, a question in her eyes. The alien seemed to understand without words. "I will remain," it said softly, "to ensure you have time to escape. My people's legacy now rests with you, Captain Reyes. Use it well." As they raced back to their shuttle, the planet crumbling around them under the Netheri bombardment, Alina felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. They had the plans for a weapon that could turn the tide of the war, but at what cost? And could they build it in time to save Earth and their allies? As the Unity jumped to warp, narrowly escaping the Netheri fleet, Alina knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They had the key to victory, but the lock was still halfway across the galaxy, surrounded by the most powerful enemy humanity had ever faced. The race against time had begun. Technological innovation. Humans develop a secret weapon. The UES Unity dropped out of warp in Earth's orbit, battered but intact. As Alina and her team were rushed to a high-security facility, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, the full extent of the Netheri's advance became clear. Nearly a third of human-controlled space had fallen, and the combined fleets of Earth and its new allies were barely holding the line. In a cavernous underground laboratory, Alina watched as Dr. Chen presented the Lumini plans to Earth's top scientists and engineers. The holographic display flickered with complex schematics and equations that made Alina's head spin. The nullifier works by generating a quantum field that disrupts the very fabric of space-time that the Netheri technology relies on, Dr. Chen explained, her eyes alight with excitement despite her exhaustion. But the power requirements are astronomical. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of Earth's Advanced Physics Division, shook her head in disbelief. We'd need to harness the energy of a small star to power this thing. It's impossible. Elena stepped forward, her voice firm. A month ago, I would have said fighting the Netheri was impossible. But here we are. We don't have the luxury of impossible anymore. As the debate raged on, a quiet voice spoke up from the back of the room. What if we didn't need to power the whole thing at once? All eyes turned to the speaker, a young engineer named Raj Patel, barely out of university. Encouraged by the attention, he continued, "Look, we can't generate that much power sustainably. But what if we stored it up over time, like a capacitor?" Dr. Chen's eyes widened, and release it all at once in a single massive pulse. That could temporarily neutralize every piece of Netheri tech in range. Raj finished, growing more excited. The room erupted into a flurry of discussion and rapid calculations. Elena felt a glimmer of hope for the first time since the war began. They had a plan. Now they just needed to execute it. Over the next weeks, the underground facility became a hive of activity. Engineers and scientists worked around the clock, fueled by desperation and caffeine. Elena found herself acting as a liaison between the research team and the military, her unique experience with both the Netheri and the Lumini proving invaluable. Progress was made in leaps and bounds, but not without setbacks. The first prototype of the energy storage unit exploded spectacularly, vaporizing a test chamber. The quantum field generator proved stubbornly unstable, refusing to maintain coherence for more than a few microseconds. But with each failure came new insights, new approaches. Raj's initial idea evolved into a network of linked storage units, each one drawing power from a different source. Fusion reactors, zero-point energy taps, even the geothermal energy of the Earth itself. Dr. Chen and her team cracked the problem of field stability by introducing a phase-shifted harmonic resonance, a breakthrough that had the physicists cheering and hugging each other like excited children. As the device, now dubbed Project Lumini, in honor of its originators, took shape, Elena couldn't help but marvel at human ingenuity. They had taken an alien concept beyond anything Earth science had imagined and not only understood it but improved upon it. But time was not on their side. Reports from the front lines grew increasingly dire. The Netheri were pushing closer to Earth with each passing day, and the Alliance fleet was being ground down by attrition. Then, just as the first full-scale test of Project Lumini was about to begin, alarms blared throughout the facility. Elena rushed to the command center, her heart pounding. Admiral Yamamoto's grim face filled the main screen. "Captain Rice, we're out of time. A massive Netheri fleet has just entered the solar system. They'll reach Earth in less than 48 hours. Elena's mind raced. The nullifier wasn't ready. They hadn't even tested it at full power yet. But they were out of options. "Admiral," she said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut, "I need you to buy us 36 hours. Whatever it takes." Yamamoto nodded solemnly. "We'll hold the line, Captain. Just make sure that weapon of yours works." As the transmission cut off, Elena turned to her team. The fear in their eyes mirrored her own, but there was determination there too. "You heard the Admiral," she said. "We've got 36 hours to save the world. Let's make them count." What followed was a blur of activity. Sleep was forgotten as the entire team pushed themselves to the limit and beyond. Systems were finalized, connections made, and emergency protocols put in place. As the deadline approached, they moved the core of Project Lumini to a specially prepared site in low Earth orbit. It was a calculated risk. Being in space would extend the weapon's range, but it also made it more vulnerable to attack. With just hours to spare, Elena found herself aboard the space station that would serve as the nullifier's platform. Through the viewport, she could see the gathered ships of the Alliance, a pitifully small force compared to the vast armada of Netheri vessels approaching from the outer system. Dr. Chen's voice came over the comm, tense but controlled. "Captain, we're as ready as we'll ever be. Energy reserves are at maximum capacity. On your command, We'll initiate the activation sequence. Elena took a deep breath, acutely aware that the fate of not just humanity, but countless other species across the galaxy rested on what happened in the next few minutes. "Do it," she said. Lights dimmed across the station as power was diverted to the nullifier. A low hum built to a piercing whine as energy levels climbed. On screens around her, Elena watched as the Netheri fleet drew closer, their weapons already firing on the outnumbered Alliance ships. Energy levels at 60%, 70%, 80%. Dr. Chen's voice was steady, but Elena could hear the tension beneath it. The first Netheri shots reached the Earth's outer defenses, shattering satellites and defense platforms. Debris filled the space around them. 90%, 95%. A Netheri cruiser noticed the station, turning its massive bulk towards them. Elena saw energy building at the tip of its main weapon. 98%, 99%. The Netheri ship fired, a lance of deadly energy streaking towards them. 100%. Initiating now. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a wave of distortion rippled out from the station, expanding at impossible speed. It washed over the approaching energy beam, which flickered and dissipated harmlessly. As the wave reached the Netheri fleet, ship after ship suddenly went dark, their engines sputtering out, weapons falling silent. The distortion continued to spread, enveloping the entire solar system in seconds. For a breathless moment, everything was still. Then cheers erupted over the comm channels as Alliance ships, untouched by the nullifier's effect, began to open fire on the helpless Netheri vessels. Elena sagged in relief, tears of joy and exhaustion streaming down her face. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had found a way to fight back. But as she watched the battle unfold, Elena knew this was just the beginning. The nullifier's effect was temporary. Already, some Netheri ships were beginning to power up again. And this was just one solar system in a vast galaxy. The war was far from over. But for the first time since it began, humanity had hope. And Elena Reyes knew that hope was the most powerful weapon of all. The counterattack, a daring plan to strike at the alien homeworld. In the weeks following the Battle of Earth, the tide of the war began to shift. Armed with the nullifier technology, Alliance forces pushed the Netheri back on multiple fronts. But Elena Reyes knew that simply defending wasn't enough. To truly end the threat, they needed to take the fight to the enemy. In a secure war room deep within the rebuilt United Earth headquarters, Elena stood before the assembled leaders of the Alliance. Holographic displays showed the known extent of Netheri space, a vast swath of the galaxy that dwarfed the territory of all other known species combined. "We've proven that the nullifier works," Elena said, her voice carrying across the room. "But its effect is temporary, and we can't be everywhere at once. To win this war, we need to strike at the heart of the Netheri Empire." Admiral Yamamoto leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "You're talking about an offensive deep into enemy territory. The risks would be enormous." Elena nodded. "They are. But I believe I've found a way to maximize our chances of success." She gestured, and a holographic display zoomed in on a particular sector of space. "This is what we believe to be the Netheri homeworld. It's heavily defended, of course, but our intelligence suggests it's also the source of their most advanced technology." Zixtal, the Araxian ambassador, rippled with concern. "To attack such a stronghold would be suicide." "Not if we use their own arrogance against them," Elena countered. She outlined her plan. A daring, multi-pronged assault that would utilize not just military might, but also subterfuge and psychological warfare. The core of the plan revolved around a specially modified ship, a vessel that would carry a nullifier powerful enough to affect an entire star system. But getting it to the Netheri homeworld would require a combination of stealth, misdirection, and raw courage. As Elena explained the details, she could see the mix of skepticism and hope on the faces around her. It was a long shot. They all knew that. but it was also their best chance at ending the war once and for all. After hours of debate and refinement, the plan was approved. Operation Lumine's Legacy, they called it, a final tribute to the alien race that had given them the key to fighting back. The next month was a whirlwind of preparation. Alina found herself at the center of it all, coordinating between military strategists, scientific teams, and the crews of the ships that would form the spearhead of the assault. The modified ship that would carry the super nullifier was christened the UES Hope. It was a technological marvel, incorporating the best of human innovation and alien insight. Its hull was lined with metamaterials that could bend light around it, making it nearly invisible to sensors. Its engines were whisper-quiet, capable of slipping through enemy territory undetected. But the true heart of the Hope was its cargo, a nullifier 100 times more powerful than the one that had saved Earth. It had taken the combined efforts of every allied world to build, drawing on resources that pushed entire economies to their limits. As the day of the operation approached, Alina found herself aboard the Hope, running through final checks with her hand-picked crew. Dr. Chen was there, of course, as was the young engineer Raj Patel, whose brilliant insights had been crucial in refining the nullifier technology. "All systems are green, Captain," Raj reported, his fingers dancing over a console. "The nullifier is stable and ready for activation on your command." Alina nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "Let's hope we don't have to use it until the very end." The plan called for a series of diversionary attacks across Netheri space, drawing their forces away from the homeworld. Meanwhile, the Hope would slip through the gaps in their defenses, aided by a network of Alliance agents who had spent months infiltrating Netheri-controlled worlds. As the Hope prepared to depart, Alina addressed her crew one last time. "What we're about to attempt has never been done before. The odds are against us, and the stakes couldn't be higher. But I want you all to remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every species that has suffered under Netheri oppression, for every world they've destroyed, and for all those who might fall if we fail. Whatever happens, I'm proud to serve with each and every one of you." With a chorus of determined affirmatives, the crew took their stations. Alina settled into the captain's chair, her eyes fixed on the view screen, as the stars stretched into lines of light. The Hope slipped into warp, carrying with it the hopes of billions. The most daring operation in the history of the galaxy had begun. For days, the Hope navigated through enemy territory, relying on its stealth systems and the carefully laid plans of the Alliance intelligence network. They had several close calls, Netheri patrols that passed within kilometers, tense moments when it seemed certain they'd been detected. But each time, the skill of the crew and a fair amount of luck saw them through. As they approached the Netheri home system, reports came in of the diversionary attacks. Alliance forces were engaging the enemy on multiple fronts, drawing ships and resources away from the heart of their empire. But Alina knew they were on borrowed time. Sooner or later, the Netheri would realize the true nature of the threat. "We're entering the outer reaches of the system," the helm officer reported, her voice tense. Alina leaned forward in her chair. "Maintain stealth protocols. Take us in nice and slow." The view screen showed a bustling star system, dozens of planets and moons, massive space stations, and countless ships moving in complex patterns. At the center of it all was the Netheri homeworld, a gleaming blue-green jewel that looked deceptively peaceful from this distance. "My God," Dr. Chen whispered, staring at her sensor readings. "The energy output of this system, it's like nothing we've ever seen." "Their technology, it's..." "Focus, Doctor," Alina said gently. "We knew they'd be advanced. That's why we're here." As they crept closer to their target, alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Multiple ships on an intercept course. The tactical officer shouted, "They've detected us." Alina's mind raced. They were too far out to activate the nullifier effectively. They needed to get closer to the homeworld. "Evasive maneuvers," she ordered. "Raj, I need options." The young engineer's fingers flew across his console. "Captain, if we route emergency power to the stealth systems, we might be able to shake them. But it'll leave us vulnerable if they get a lucky shot in." "Do it," Alina commanded without hesitation. The Hope shuddered as it accelerated, pushing its systems to the limit. On the view screen, Alina watched as Netheri ships converged on their position, energy weapons charging. For agonizing minutes, they played a deadly game of cat and mouse, weaving through the complex gravitational landscape of the star system. More than once, a Netheri blast came close enough to rock the ship, but somehow they stayed just ahead of their pursuers. Finally, they broke through the inner defense perimeter. The Netheri homeworld loomed large before them, its surface a maze of gleaming cities and impossible structures. "We're in position," Raj called out. "Nullifier is hot and ready." Alina took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would decide the fate of the galaxy. "Activate the nullifier." Full power. The Hope shuddered as the device came to life, drawing every ounce of energy the ship could produce. A wave of distortion, visible even to the naked eye, exploded outward from the ship. As it washed over the Netheri vessels in pursuit, their weapons went silent, their engines sputtered and died. The wave continued to spread, enveloping the entire planet and beyond. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, all across the system, Netheri ships began to drift, their power sources neutralized. The massive structures orbiting the planet went dark, and on the surface, city lights flickered and died. Alina hardly dared to breathe. "Status report," she managed to croak out. Dr. Chen's voice was filled with awe. "It worked, Captain. The entire system, every piece of Netheri tech, it's all offline." Cheers erupted across the bridge, but Alina held up a hand for silence. "It's not over yet," she reminded them. "Broadcast on all frequencies. The surrender message." As the carefully crafted message went out, offering the Netheri a chance to end the war peacefully, Alina stared at the view screen, at the now vulnerable heart of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Whatever happened next, she knew the universe would never be the same. Humanity, once a small and isolated species, had changed the course of galactic history. The real challenge, building a lasting peace, was just beginning. But for now, in this moment of victory, Alina allowed herself a small smile. Against all odds, they had done the impossible. They had brought hope back to the galaxy, turning the tide. Humanity's ingenuity changes the course of the war. The aftermath of Operation Lumine's legacy unfolded in ways that no one, not even Alina Reyes, could have fully anticipated. As the nullifier's effect spread across the Netheri home system, neutralizing their advanced technology, the once invincible empire found itself suddenly vulnerable. The initial response was chaos. Netheri ships adrift in space, their crews panicking as life support systems failed. Cities on the homeworld plunged into darkness, their inhabitants facing a world without the technology they had relied on for millennia. Alina and her crew watched tensely as their broadcast played on repeat, offering terms of surrender and promising aid to any Netheri willing to embrace peace. For agonizing hours, there was no response. Then, just as Alina was beginning to fear they'd have to resort to more drastic measures, a transmission came through. The being on the screen was clearly Netheri, but looked nothing like the fearsome warriors they'd faced in battle. This individual seemed older, frailer, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing with what Alina interpreted as fear and uncertainty. "I am High Chancellor Zexera of the Netheri Ascendancy," the alien said, its voice translated by the ship's computer. We wish to discuss terms." The negotiations that followed were tense and complex. Alina found herself acting as both military commander and diplomat, walking a delicate line between firmness and compassion. The Netheri, she discovered, were not the monolithic force they had appeared to be. There were factions within their society, some of which had long opposed the aggressive expansion that had brought them into conflict with the rest of the galaxy. As the talks progressed, Dr. Chen made a startling discovery. "Captain," she said, her eyes wide with excitement, "I've been analyzing the data we've gathered on Netheri physiology. Their reliance on technology. It's not just cultural, it's biological." She explained that generations of integration with their advanced tech had left the Netheri physically dependent on it. The nullifier hadn't just disarmed them, it had left them fighting for survival. This revelation changed the tone of the negotiations entirely. What had begun as a military surrender became a complex humanitarian operation. Alliance ships, once poised for attack, now moved in to provide aid and support. Elena found herself working alongside Netheri scientists and engineers, racing against time to develop ways to sustain their population without reactivating the technology that had made them such a threat. It was a monumental task, requiring innovation and cooperation on an unprecedented scale. Raj Patel proved invaluable in this effort, his brilliant mind finding creative solutions to seemingly impossible problems. He developed a method to selectively reactivate Netheri tech for life support purposes, while keeping their weapons and propulsion systems offline. As weeks turned into months, a new order began to emerge. The Netheri Ascendancy, once the terror of the galaxy, was transformed. Under the guidance of more moderate factions, they began the long process of making amends for centuries of aggression. The Alliance, too, underwent changes. What had begun as a desperate coalition against a common enemy evolved into something more, a galactic community dedicated to mutual support and peaceful coexistence. Elena watched all of this with a mix of pride and amazement. Humanity, once considered a primitive species barely worth noticing, had become a linchpin in this new galactic order. Their adaptability, their creativity, their ability to find solutions where others saw only problems. These traits had not only won the war, but were now shaping the peace. 1 year after the activation of the nullifier, Elena stood on the bridge of a new ship, the UES Unity, named in honor of the vessel that had brought the first allies together. Before her stretched the vastness of space, no longer a battlefield but a frontier of possibilities. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Yamamoto." The Admiral's face appeared on the screen, a rare smile on his usually stern features. "Captain Reyes," he said, "I have some news I think you'll want to hear personally." Elena listened as Yamamoto explained. The Galactic Council, a new governing body representing all allied species, including a now peaceful Netheri delegation, had made a decision. They were establishing an exploratory organization dedicated to pushing the boundaries of known space and fostering peace and understanding throughout the galaxy. "They want you to lead it, Elena," Yamamoto said. "You've earned their trust, and there's no one better suited to represent the best of what humanity has to offer." Elena felt a swell of emotion, pride, excitement, and a touch of trepidation. "I'd be honored, Admiral," she said. "When do we start?" "Immediately," Yamamoto replied. "There's a lot of galaxy out there, Captain. Time to see what else is waiting for us." As the transmission ended, Elena turned to her crew, a diverse mix of humans and aliens, all working together in harmony. "Well," she said, a smile playing at her lips, "you heard the Admiral. Let's see what's out there." The UES Unity's engines hummed to life, propelling them towards the unknown. As they jumped to warp, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from a desperate battle for survival to the dawn of a new era of galactic cooperation. Humanity had proven that even the most impossible odds could be overcome with ingenuity, determination, and hope. The stars streaked past the view screen, each one a potential new adventure, a new challenge to overcome. And Elena Reyes, once a simple starship captain, now the leader of humanity's greatest expedition, couldn't wait to see what they would discover next. As the Unity ventured into uncharted space, Elena knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, not just as humans, but as part of a greater galactic community. The impossible had become possible, and the future was brighter than ever before. The end of the Netheri War wasn't just a victory for humanity or their allies. It was a turning point for the entire galaxy, ushering in an age of exploration, cooperation, and boundless potential. And at the heart of it all was the spirit of humanity, adaptable, innovative, and eternally hopeful. As they journeyed into the unknown, Alina Reyes and her crew carried with them the lessons of their past struggles and the promise of a brighter future. The stars awaited, and humanity was ready to take its place among them.